Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Mom and Baby Swan, and I'm going to be sipping on some green tea today. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, Mars black, green oxide, deep yellow, chrome orange, and burnt umber, which I will refer to as brown. And of course you can certainly switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a 1/4 inch wide flat bristle brush, and then I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And again, you can certainly switch those up if you'd like to. And then if you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same paint and the brushes and all that good stuff. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're doing an outline of our swans. So I'm going to be using my pencil, and I'm going to guide you through some basic shapes, and we're going to connect some dots, and hopefully by the time we're done we'll have the shape of a mama and a baby swan that we'll be able to color in with some base colors. So we're not going for any real fine detail on this, we're just going to do some outlines of some basic shapes. So we're going to draw the baby swan first. I'm going to be using my pencil, and my baby swan is going to be pretty much in the middle of my canvas. I'm going to start with a circle for the head. So where you're going to want to start is about the center of your canvas. So you can kind of go left to right at the top, kind of find yourself a center spot, and then you can do the same thing on the left or the right hand side of your canvas. Kind of find yourself a center spot. Let me do this way. Eyeball center spot, and then just kind of move your fingers towards the center, and that'll give you a good spot that is near the center of your canvas, if you don't want to use a ruler, that is. And then once you've got that spot in through there, then you're going to travel up from that. I'm going to go about 2.5 to 2 3/4 inches and just make myself another dot up at top. So that's going to be the bottom and the top of my circle, and a circle is going to be as high as it is wide. So whatever you've done here, you can just use your pencil as a measuring tool, and then just go like this and make yourself a marker at either side of that, and that's going to represent top, bottom, left, and right of your circle. And now you're just going to sketch yourself a circle. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. This is just something that's going to give us a nice, good starting point for our little cute baby swan that we're going to be doing. And then once I've got that done, I'm going to put the body on. So my little swan is just kind of nestled underneath Mama's neck, so he's just kind of squashed and just, you know, in a comfortable sitting position. So I'm going to have the shape of his body in an oval. So my oval is going to be about as tall as this circle, so you can kind of give yourself a little measurement there, come directly below that, make yourself another mark, and then the width of it is about twice as wide as here. So you could just take your pencil, get your width from there, and kind of go in the center like that, make yourself a mark on the left hand side, do the same thing, come down to about the center make yourself a mark on the right hand side, and that's going to give you the top, bottom, left, and right of your oval. So now I'm just going to connect all of my dots in an oval type shape. And yours might not look exactly the same as mine. Yours might be a little bit, you know, wider or more narrow, or, you know, more pointy on the edges. It'll all work out in the end, trust me. So now that I've got that on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself the shape for the bill of the duck. So I'm going to come down about 2/3 of the way down this circle. So somewhere in through here is where the top of the bill is going to be, and then the bottom of the bill is going to be somewhere in through here. So I'm just going to give myself a little marker in through here and here, and now I'm going to connect these with a little bit of a scooping kind of line. It's going to come down a little bit and then maybe up just a little bit at that edge. Not a lot, just a little tiny bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off this back gap just a little bit. So I'm just going to bring this in through here. So that's all I'm going to do for the outline of my baby duck. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the outline of my, I called it a duck, it's a swan. I think they might be in the duck family. I could be wrong though. So I'm going to I'm going to kind of approach the mom in the same way, with starting with a circle for the head. So I'm going to put my circle for my head in this vicinity. My circle for my mom's head is going to be almost twice as large as my baby one. So I'm going to have it starting in through here. Right around here is where I'm going to have it start. And then if this is about the length of this circle, I guess maybe an inch, inch and a half, or a time and a half. So maybe about 4 inches is about the length I'm going to do it. So I'm going to start this maybe somewhere in through here. So that gives me a good kind of starting point. And then you can do the same thing with making your markers something like this and then crossing it over like this. That'll give you a good kind of top, bottom, left, and right. And then you just kind of connect them in that circular type fashion. And again, it doesn't have to be an exact circle. This again is just really giving us the base for, I think this is going to be a little bit too low. I'm going to put this a little bit higher. This is just really giving us the base to where we want the head of the swan to go. And it doesn't, again, have to be a perfect circle, just something that is representational of a circle type shape. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to guide you into making the rest of the body, but I'm going to put the inside of the neck. So we've got the two heads, and now I just have to kind of form the wings and the neck around it and the bill or the beak. So I'm going to start by doing the inside part of the neck. I'm going to start at the top of my baby's head in through here, and I'm going to give it a curved line that's going to meet the front of this oval down in through here. So something like this. Just a little bit of an arcing line is going to give me the inside part of the mom's neck. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be coming from the center part of my oval. I'm going to come about halfway between that and the edge of my canvas. So somewhere in here, and come up just a little bit. This is going to represent the outside spot where I want to stop for the neck. So I'm going to start at the top of the head for the outside edge of the neck, and I'm going to stop right about here. This is just going to be a long, arcing, curved line that I'm going to start at the top of my circle and through here. And you can even go up a little bit above that circle area. That's going to show it, that the arc of the neck is a little bit more bent. And then I'm just going to kind of give this a continual type of curved line. You can even come out this way a little bit, and of course you can certainly reshape it to whatever you feel looks good. So that's going to be the outside of my neck. Then I'm going to come straight over to the left hand side, somewhere in through here, make myself a mark, and I'm going to connect these two with just an uneven kind of like a curved line. This is going to represent the top of one of the feathers or one of the wings. Now over on the right hand side, I am going to put my beak on. So what I'm going to do on this side is, again, I'm going to come about a little bit more than halfway between the edge of my duck, I'm going to keep calling it a duck. In some of these videos, I just get stuck on a word, and my stuck word is duck, even though it should be swan. So I apologize in advance. So I'm going to go from here to here, about halfway, and maybe a little bit lower. So I'm going somewhere in this vicinity is going to be the tip of my beak for my swan, for my mama swan. I'm going to connect here to here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down just a little bit down this circle in through here. And when I go to connect these two, I don't want a super straight line. So I'm going to give it a tiny bit of a wave just so it looks a little bit more natural. So something maybe in this vicinity, you know, just something that gives a little bit of movement to it. And then the top of the bill or of the beak, they have this little bumpy skin type portion in through here. So I'm going to come about halfway down my circle to about here. This is going to end up connecting to the end of my beak, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do first. So I'm going to bring this down in like a little bit of a bump, and then I'm going to kind of scoop it down in through here, and then I will bring it down in a curve at that end. So here we go. I'm going to start with just a little bit of a little bumpiness, which is where the skin, I guess, that's probably not the correct terminology, but that bumpy part at the top of their beak goes. And then I'm going to just kind of bring this down almost in a straight vertical line. It's a little bit tipped diagonally, but not a ton. It gets skinnier and skinnier as it gets towards the end, like in through here. And then as I go towards that edge, that's when I'm going to just bring it down in this curved type of motion. And when we put the details on everything, you can certainly adjust that even more when we go through that process. And then I just need one more wing over on this right hand side. So I'm going to come down this oval to, I would say, right about in through here. And then down on the bottom right hand corner of my canvas, I'm going to come in maybe about 1/4 of an inch, make myself a mark. I'm going to connect these two with a big wavy line. So I'm going to bring it pretty darn close to my beak, so somewhere in through here, and then bring it down. And yours doesn't have to be exactly the same wavy line mine is. This is just going to represent the outside of a big beautiful wing from mom's body. And then that's all we're going to be doing for the outline. We are going to be using our big brush for the next step. So once you've got this all nice and done, make any tweaks that you would like to. Put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're painting the water. So I'm going to be using my big brush, and the colors that I'm using are black, green, and yellow. So my water is, I'm making it kind of on the abstract type of side. In my head, I am envisioning this to be like the reflections in moving kind of pond or river or lake water that you can see all the forest around it with the greens and the dark, you know, blacks from the neighboring trees and stuff, and maybe some little pops of sunshine with the yellow. So that's why I'm going to be choosing to do these colors. I thought they'd be really nice and complementary to our mom and baby swan. So how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be moving my brush in a left to right type of fashion to give you the appearance of ripples in the water. There's going to be a couple of tricky spots, which are going to be this one in through here and in through here. So when you're doing this, it's okay if you bump into your pencil mark. You don't want to cross over too much because the black will hide it on you, but if you bump into it a little bit, that's okay. You just want to kind of keep it consistent looking throughout these areas. So I'm going to start with my dark color, which is black, then I'll go to green, then I'll go to yellow. And I'm just going to do it in kind of a splotchy type of way. So I've got my large brush, and I am using a bristle brush that sometimes seems to have a mind of its own and go a little bit out of control. So what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to take it and I'm going to squish it in my paint on the side of my palette. And what that's going to do is that will bring all of my bristles nice and together, and they'll be a little bit in more of a controlled fashion for me. And I'm just going to kind of start on the right and work my way towards the left. When you get towards or near your animals, You don't necessarily want it to look like you are doing an outline around them like that. You still want to maintain the brush stroke to look like it's going left to right, even when it's hitting the animal itself. So you just want to kind of consciously think, I want to remain left to right. I don't want to do an outline around the animal. So that's where, even if it's easier to do this right up to the animal, you can take that paint and just kind of pull it out. And that'll give you that left to right type of brush stroke that you're looking for. So I'm going to continue in through here, give myself a couple of little black streaks in through here. And again, all the while, I'm okay if I bump into my animal a bit. And I'm trying to make it not very systematic looking. I want to make sure it's got some sort of inconsistency, because these are just intended to look like little ripples in the water. So I'm doing my black first, so that way I've got some good darkness in it in certain places, but I'm not going to overwhelm it with the black. I'm just kind of doing a few strategic areas in through here, making sure that I've got some good balance, just a couple of little pieces up top. Now, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up some green. So I've got some green on my brush, and once you start using the green, if you're still just coming out with black on your canvas, you might want to wash and dry the brush, but I think I'll be pretty good with just kind of using this little bit of green in through here, making sure that I've got it represented throughout the entire canvas, and still all the while knowing that I want to save some spots for some green, or for some yellow, I mean. And I am going to be overlapping in some areas. I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel because I want to be able to control my green a little bit more. So I just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm saving some spots for yellow, and I am also overlapping some of my black spots. So this way, this is going to really give me some good diversity as I go through the entire area. And I do, of course, want to have some of this green in through here. So I'm really just using the little corner of my brush, making sure that I get right up to the edge of my little, I almost called it a duckling, my little swan in through here. And I'm consciously making sure that I maintain that left to right brush stroke. So this is just where it gets a little bit trickier in through here. You could, I suppose, switch to a smaller brush if this size brush was just not cooperating for you. But again, I'm leaving some spots for my yellow to come in through here. And again, I'm going for, kind of a nice moody water, so that way, we've got some good movement, we've got some good, excitement in there. And then as I get up towards this top, I'm just kind of adding some in through here, making sure, again, I'm leaving some spots for my yellow that I'll be putting on in a minute. So I'm a little bit more liberal when it comes to these top areas, because I can see that I've got more space to work with. And again, I can overlap into that black a little bit, making sure that I get right up to my animal, so that way it doesn't look like I'm working around it or doing outlines around it. But again, you can trace it if you want to around that edge, but while that paint's still wet, make sure that you utilize that left to right brush stroke. And then my final color is going to be with the yellow. So again, I'm not washing my brush, I'm just picking up some yellow paint, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've got whatever little white spots that I had left. I'm just going to kind of come in and shoot a little bit of yellow in there, and you can see it's starting to come to life with a little bit of sunshine just twinkling off the water in through here. I've got this little tiny spot I want to make sure that I get in through here. And again, you can see that I'm bumping right into the neck of my swan, which is okay, because I'll be able to paint over that. I just want to make sure that I maintain this left to right brush stroke. And as you get towards these final little spots that you're doing, you can certainly pick up a good amount of paint. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to over blend it, just kind of sit it right on top of there. Just maneuver your brush left to right. So at this point, I'm using the most amount of paint on my brush. Again, you can overlap these colors. I'm going left to right, but you can also kind of do a zigzag type of brush stroke as well, and just make sure that you carry that color throughout the whole area. And again, I'm trying not to overblend. This way I can maintain the ripple effect. If you overblend it, what might end up happening is it might end up turning into one solid color. And if that happens, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what you could do if you wanted to give the appearance of the ripples, you could come in and do a second layer on top of it if you needed to or wanted to, by just kind of adding these kind of jagged, almost zigzag type of brush strokes that I'm doing in through here. And then once you've got your water done, we will be using, let's see, what are we going to use for the next step? We're actually going to use our medium brush for the next step. So I'm just kind of finishing up with getting some of this beautiful yellow throughout my water. And then once I've got this all nice and done, I'm going to put this large brush away, and I will take out my medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna be painting the base coat for our baby swan. I'm gonna be using my medium brush, so this will be my 1/4 inch bristle brush, and the colors that I'm gonna be using are black, white, and brown. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make myself a medium to dark gray color. So what I'm gonna do is I like my grays to be kind of on the warmer side, so I'm going to add just a touch of brown, some black, and a little bit of white. And I'm going for a medium to dark gray. This is going to be the base coat for my little duck, and my little duck is in the shadows of my little swan is in the shadows of its mama. So it's going to have a lot of darkness to it, and a nice dark base will make your life easier when you go to build the feathers on top of it. So this is about where I'm going with my color, and yours doesn't have to be exactly the same color as mine, because you're going to have much opportunity to tweak it when we put all of the other details on it. We're just going for a nice neutral kind of dark base. So I've got my medium to dark gray, and I'm really just painting it in. It doesn't even have to be a beautiful coat. It doesn't have to be perfectly executed. You just want to have a nice, you want to make sure that you get the whole thing, but it doesn't have to be perfectly executed. If you see little brush marks throughout it, that's okay. Just when the only part that I would suggest you kind of go slow at is the beak. So when you're doing the beak, just kind of go slow along the edge of that, because that's the area where you'll want to have a nice edge to it when we go to put the details on it. But along the edge of wherever there's feathers, that's okay. You don't have to have those perfect, because those are going to be fluffy anyways. So I'm just continuing to get my color on here, making sure I go all the way up to my water's edge. And this doesn't have to be perfect, because that's going to be overlapped by mother's feathers as well. And then just getting this little area in here. And then when you've got the whole thing colored in, we are going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So get your baby duck painted, wash or put your medium brush away wherever you'd like to, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our mama swan. I'm using my large brush, and I'm using the same colors, black, brown, and white. And what I'm really going to be doing is just making myself a lighter shade of gray than this. So it doesn't have to be too much lighter, but a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take a little bit of my black, a little bit of my brown, and of course this time I need more because I have a bigger area to go for. So I'm just going to make sure that I create enough, so I'm going to have a nice base coat for this. And again, it doesn't have to be anything really super special, just something a little bit lighter than you have for the baby. And then once you've got the desired color, there's no fancy brush stroke involved here. You just want to make sure that you've got the entire area covered. I am going to keep it a little bit smoother around the neck and the face, but as far as where the feathers are going to go along the back side down below, those don't have to be super perfect. I just want to try and get this as much up to my water line, because I don't want it to look like I've missed any areas. And if you did, like I'm noticing I have a little bit of an area that kind of shoots out into my water right here that's not painted, I can always come back with my watercolor and make any of those type of minor modifications that I need to if I want to. Or I could just bring my swan all the way out there too if I needed to or wanted to. And I think I've lost my little bump here, so I'm just going to make sure that I've got a little bit of that bump back on that forehead so I can make sure I know where to go later with that. So I'm just bumping out a little bit in through here with my brush. And again, anytime you do stuff like this where you're just kind of making marks on the fly like I am, in this initial stage, or this what's referred to as a block-in stage, it doesn't need to be perfect. This is just really giving yourself a nice base coat, kind of a nice stable foundation to build the painting off of. So if you do make, you know, what you believe to be are mistakes or boo-boos or whatever, you have plenty of opportunity to fix them. So don't feel the need to have anxiety or anything along that line, especially when you're in these beginning stages, because you've got so much more to do and so many more areas to paint and layers to put on and texture to add to it. Like I just painted into my baby duck, and I'm okay with that. Baby swan, I really mean. And I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that I've got a good coat on here. I'm not even using any special brush stroke because, again, this is just my base coat. I'm going to have lots of stuff on top of it, so it doesn't need to be anything fancy in through here. I want to make sure that I get all the way down the bill or the beak of my swan. Boy, it's amazing how much I have to really think sometimes about these words. And then I'm going to just kind of go slower around here. And again, if you wanted to switch brushes to a smaller brush as you are doing this little, this area that takes a little bit more care, you could certainly switch to a smaller brush. Or again, you can do any little modifications when we go to do the details later. But I'm just kind of trying to get it up to the edges, keeping a little bit of a softer line at that bottom so it's not so super straight. And then you'll probably see your brush strokes, and some spots are going to be lighter than others or darker than others, which is totally okay. And then again, I'm just going to kind of go right up to my edge of my wing for my swan and make sure I go all the way up to the edge of my water. And your swan might get a little bit bigger during this stage, and if that happens, that's all right. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I have this full coat on here. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this full coat on here, to just making sure that I've got the full coat on here. And if you ended up not mixing enough paint and you need to mix more, it's okay, because it doesn't have to be a perfect match. So just go ahead if you need to make more paint, and you can certainly get a full coat on there. And then you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the black areas on the faces. So I'm going to be using my small brush and black paint, but I do want to forewarn you that before we start this step, that you want to make sure that your two swans are dry. So, you know, you could take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you could dry it with whatever innovative fanning method that you'd like to, or you could do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dried that way. So whatever way works for you is totally fine. So again, I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using black paint, and I will most likely, most of the time, dip my brush in water first, so that way the black paint is nice and fluid, and I can get some nice clean lines to this. So I'm going to start on my baby swan first. So I dipped my brush in water, and then I'm just picking up a tiny bit of black paint. I'm going to do my eye first. So my eye, I've got marked kind of right here. So if this was your original circle in through here, and if this is the center, you can just go down to the left a little bit. That can be the center of the eye. And I'm going to make myself a small circle that's probably about a 1/4 inch wide by a 1/4 inch tall, 1/4 to a 1/2 inch, something like that. And then once I have that circle on there, I'm going to pull it out in the back right corner. So something like this, give a little bit of a point in the back right corner, and then I'm going to pull it down in the bottom left corner as well. This gives you that little cuteness in the corner of the eye, and in the corner of both corners of the eye. So then once I've got that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the beak in place. So my beak is going to start where my head meets the beak in through here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of bring this up towards the corner of the eye, something like this. And then I'm going to bring it down in a kind of a curved type of fashion down to about where you have this neck area in through here. And again, this doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. This can have a little bit of movement to it. And then this is going to end up meeting the end of your beak. But the beak is going to overlap the body a little bit. So what you can do is you can come towards the front of the beak and just kind of bring this down into the body just a little bit. And then this will then come back up and kind of meet back in through here, somewhere in through here. And again, if you do something and you're like, oh, that didn't quite work out exactly as I had planned, don't worry, you can always make adjustments when you go to put the feathers on. So I'm just going to kind of paint this in with my black paint, get this entire area covered in through here. Make sure I go all the way to the edge and just get the whole thing. Oh, he's going to be so cute. I like it when even these little beginning steps, when it's like, oh, there's his little cute beak. I think I want to just pull this little tiny corner up just a bit. So I just washed my brush and put a little bit of water on it just to pull this up just a tiny bit. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and move to the mom. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put her eye in place first, and then we're just going to work our way from the eye. So I have my eye marked right about here. So this is, if this was our original circle somewhere in through here, it's almost about dead center, maybe a little bit to the top a bit, but nothing major. And it's going to be about twice the size of what I did for the baby's eye. So I'm going to start with a circle, and yours might end up bigger or smaller than mine. It's, you know, it all ends up working out because there are no two animals exactly alike in this world, so we can have our own little modifications. So once I've got that on there, I'm going to pull it out in the back left-hand corner, similar to how I did the baby one, but this is going to go kind of more on a diagonal type of way, and it's going to be a little bit longer. So something like this, and then just kind of bring it up and gradually kind of get it to blend into that circle that I just created. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where my bumpy part that I have over here meets my head. So I've got this spot right in through here. I'm going to give it a curved line to meet the top of my eye. So I'm going to start at the top of my eye in through here, and I'm going to bring this down first. So something like this, and then kind of across the face like this, and then just back up just a little bit to meet that marker. And then I'm going to do a similar thing over on this left-hand side. So I'm going to have, this is in essence going to be a line that comes over towards the face. We're in essence going to be outlining the cheek. If this is your cheek, we're going to kind of outline the cheek, and then it's going to come and ride down to the bottom of the beak. So I'm going to start about here, and I'm going to bring it curved towards the back of the head like this, and then bring it over here. So again, I have water and black paint on my brush at the same time. I'm going to start in my eye. I'm going to bring it kind of up a little bit as it's exiting the eye, and then I'm going to bring it over, outlining what I'm going to call my cheek. And then I'm going to bring it down in through here, a curved line going like this, and it's going to ride down. I'm staying a little bit away from the edge of my bottom of my beak, because I think that might be where the mouth is, and then I'm going to, where it kind of opens, and then as I get towards the end of the beak, I can certainly continue with some of that wavy type of movement. I'm going to, we're going to thicken this up in a minute, but I'm just kind of traveling around the beak. At the tip of the beak, I'm going to do a curved, almost like triangle type section, like this. I'm going to go all the way to the edge of the beak on the right hand side, like this, and just kind of color this in so it's more narrow at the top and gets a little bit thicker down at the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this this piece in through here. This ends up being part of where the nostril is going to go, but what I'm going to do to make my life easier is I'm going to come about halfway down my skin part in through here, and I'm going to give myself kind of a curved line that's going to end up meeting this one. So it's going to end up wider in through here, pretty wide, pretty wide, pretty wide, and then it gets more narrow until it meets here. So here we go. I'm going to start right about here, and I'm going to bring this in a kind of a curved line over in through here. I'm going to curve it around here, reloading my brush, and then this is going to get more narrow as it meets the end of the beak, like that. We'll color that in a second, just giving you a nice outline so you can follow. And then this second part where the nostril is going to go, I'm going to travel down to the bottom of that skin part. So mine is right about here. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit of this like little weird pointy part where my nostril is going to reside. So something like this. And this can be wiggly around the edges. My dogs are ready to start being part of my video. I might have to press pause in a minute. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to color in these two sections in with black. And then once you've got these sections colored in, we are going to be switching back to our medium brush. So again, I'm just coloring these in with black. Nothing fancy in through here, and if you felt like you had any adjustments to make, you could certainly go back into the original color that you used for the base color of both of the swans, and you could, you know, reshape any of your edges if you needed to, or you could use the black to make the edges bigger if you wanted to, and then you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're going to be painting our shadows on our swans. So I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors that I'm using are black and brown, and I may end up using some of the original gray colors that I used as well, but I'll let you know if I do that. So the idea here is I want to make sure that there's some good dimension in here, and how I'm going to be able to accomplish that is by putting some deep shadows underneath this baby swan, as well as underneath the neck of the mama swan. So, and a little bit along this back area where the wings are going to be kind of encapsulating the little baby one. So during this process, I'm going to be using my bristle brush, and I'm not going to use a lot of paint. I'm going to be using what I refer to as like a dry brush type of technique, where I'll just be rubbing it into place. If I don't get a good enough blend in my mind, I will either pick up the original color that it's sitting on, or I can use a tiny bit of water to get it there. I'm going to have my deepest, darkest shadow is going to be underneath the baby swan and right underneath that head in through there. So that I'm going to use a little bit more black, and then as I work my way away from that area, I'll use a little bit more brown. So I'm going to start with a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush. And if you feel like you have too much, just kind of wipe it off on your paper towel. I'm going to start here because I know this is a really safe area to start. So I'm just going to kind of rub it underneath my baby swan like this, and I can even bring it up into the body of the baby swan, because that will tell the viewer that this little animal has a roundness to him. So I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to now pick up a tiny bit of brown paint without washing my brush, and this will get it to have a little bit more depth to it as it's fading away towards the regular gray. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some in through here. So I'm not even going to wash my brush at this point. I'm just going to kind of rub it on here. I'm going to pick up some of the original gray color just to kind of get a little bit darker, maybe a little bit more black and brown. It's not enough for me. And I'm just going to kind of get myself a nice dark area in through here. This is again where those wings are going to kind of cast the most shadow on the back of the swan's neck. You can even bring this shadow up a little bit up that neck too, but I'm leaving some brightness along the edge of the swan's neck because that's going to have a little bit of the air, the shadow or the highlight from the sky. So just giving myself a little bit of darkness in through here, making sure it blends in a little bit, but again, it doesn't need to blend perfectly because it's going to be overlapped by the wings. And then I'm going to go ahead and do underneath here. So I'm putting a tiny bit of black paint on my brush, and I really just want this to look like this little head is kind of just squishing underneath mom's neck in through here. And again, if you feel like you do too much or it's just not working out for you, it's okay. We've got plenty of other, when we go to put all of the fur or all the feathers on, we'll be able to manipulate this a little bit and make it a little bit more natural looking. So don't worry if you don't get it perfect. It's a building process. It definitely everything in painting is a work in progress until you sign it, in my opinion. So I'm adding a touch more brown, and you guys can't always see this stuff off camera, but I'm constantly wiping my brush off on my paper towel to make sure that I control the quantity of paint on my brush. I'm in control, and that's how I do it. So I'm just kind of getting this little bit of a shadow underneath this head, making sure that it blends in with that neighboring fur feathers or background color. So I just picked up some of that gray that we used originally just to get this to blend in a little bit more, something like this. And then I have one little area left that I want to put a shadow on. It's going to be on the neck of my little baby guy here. So I'm going to not even wash my brush, just kind of maybe put a little bit of black back on there, and then just make sure that I've got a little bit. I don't necessarily want this area to go black on me because I want it to I don't want it to get confused with the beak itself, but I definitely want there to be some darkness. So I am constantly, again, just making sure that I am using the right quantity of paint and not too much. I'm going to just kind of get this little bit of a shadow in through here. And then we are going to be utilizing our, let's use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your shadows in place, you feel like you've got good dimensions started on your swans, you can put the medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right. So what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing the facial features on our swans. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use a whole bunch of different colors, but let's see. I'm going to be using black and white and brown, black, white, brown, orange, and yellow. So those are the colors: black, white, brown, orange, and yellow. So I'm using my small brush. I'm going to start with my little baby one first, and then we can work our way to our mama swan. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to do my eye first. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of white and my light gray color. So I have white and light gray on my brush. And I'm just going to give myself a little kind of curved twinkle in the eye. And I'm not going all the way to the edge. I'm just going to kind of give myself just a little kind of dot twinkle like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel like this. I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown with white. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of a highlight around that eye. I don't want it to look like a total outline, so I'm going to be doing just a little light kind of sketcherly brush stroke around it. And if you feel like it's too light, just pick up a little bit of the medium or the light or the dark gray, and just kind of giving these little bits of almost gives you a little bit more of an expression around those eyes when you have those light little pieces. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm not even going to wash my brush. I have some of that lighter color I'm going to utilize as a highlight on my bill of my little swan here. So I'm just kind of adding a bit of lightness at the edge of it in through here. And then I'm picking up some black without washing my brush. And this is going to give me a little bit of a blending ability. I don't want to get this whole thing to go gray on me, but I definitely want there to be the identifying marks of the shape of it. So this gave you the impression that there's a rounded edge to it. Because I didn't bring the light color all the way down to the bottom, that gives you the information that it is curved. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight on the top of it in through here. And if I curve it a little bit, that'll tell the viewer that it's got a little bit of a curve to it. And if you feel like you want a little bit more lightness coming over here, feel free to do so. Just keep on adding a little bit more black on my brush so I don't go too light. And that's all I'm going to do for that one. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to go on to my mama over here. So I'm going to start with her eye. I'm going to be using orange and yellow on my brush at the same time, and I'm not using a lot of it. I'm going to give myself like a crescent type of shape, not bringing it all the way to the edge of the area, so that there's going to remain a little bit of a black outline along the edge. And I'm going to have it not the same color all the way around. So that's why when you utilize multiple colors on your brush, you have the ability to have a variety of tones and shades and stuff within that one area. So I'm choosing to use some orange and yellow. So I've got this right side is a little bit more orange. The left side I'll get to be a little bit more yellow. And if you want there to be a little bit of lightness to it, you can add a touch of white. I think I'm going a touch of white and a little bit of yellow on my brush right now to give a bit of lightness down at the bottom, which is where you would see the color part of the eye the most. And once you've got enough color in it that you're happy with, I just keep tweaking it. The trick to doing something like this is never use a ton of paint on your brush, and you can continue to just kind of keep adding these really delicate little layers to get it to that color zone that you want. Now I'm going to add my twinkle in my eye. So I just washed and dried my brush. I'm picking up a touch of white paint, and I'm just going to put a little bit of a twinkle towards the bottom of the eye, as if it's kind of steering you to understand that mom might be looking at the little guy a bit. I just am adding a touch more white to my brush so you can really get this twinkle evident in through there. Yeah, that looks good to me. So now I'm going to go ahead and start working on the bill part. So I'm going to have a highlight over here on the right hand side on this skin part as well as on the bill itself. This interior area is going to be my orange yellow type of mixture, and then I'm just going to kind of get this highlight to gradually just blend into the black area. So I'm going to start with the orange area, orange/yellow area, because I might need a couple of layers on that to get it to do what I want it to. I'm going to have it pretty dark down in this area in through here, which will tell the viewer that it dips down a little bit here, and then lighter around here, which will give you some dimension to it. So I'm starting with just orange paint on my brush, and I'm giving myself a good area of the orange in through here. And now what I'm going to do is, now that I've got that on there, I'm going to start picking up orange and yellow and start to get it to be a little bit more on the yellow side over in through here. And I'm going to start to pick up a touch of white as well. So orange, yellow, and white are now all on my brush at the same time. My goal here is to get it to gradually kind of blend in with this black area. So I don't necessarily need a super clean line in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and just kind of mess up my line a little bit with a couple of little wonky waves, I guess, along that edge. And same thing as I come in through here, I definitely want to maintain some of this movement in through here So I'm going to make sure that I continue to show that movement. I don't want a super straight line. And then I'm going to get these to blend in with one another, the light with the dark. So something like this. And same thing with where it meets this skin part. I don't want it to be really clean. I want it to look natural, and that these pieces are just kind of working themselves into each other, and they are part of each other. And then I'm going to go ahead and work my way towards the tip of the bill as well. So I have more white on my brush right now, so I can have a nice light area up towards that front. And again, it's going to kind of meet and overlap with this black area. I'm going to start in a second. Once I get these areas to talk to each other well enough, I will introduce a little bit of gray on the tip of that beak as well, to get it to look really nice and natural. So I just kind of keep blending these into one another. I want to get that orange and the highlight up at the bridge of the beak, and you can keep layering these colors on as they're drying. You might say, oh, I think I want that one to be a little bit brighter or have a little bit more yellow in it. These beaks can come in a very wide variety of shades, anywhere between yellow and orange. I'm putting a really bright highlight over here on this right hand side, which is gonna tell the story of where the highlight comes, or where the light source is, but I want it to blend in with that orange. But while I have the light color on my brush, I'm just going to kind of carry it into the top of that beak a little bit, the front of it. I'm picking up some more orange to get this to blend in over in this vicinity, because I don't just want a white line. I want it to make sure that it blends in. And of course you can use any variety of the white, yellow, and orange to get these to really talk to one another and just kind of blend in with one another. I might elevate this little tippy top a bit more in a second here, but I'm just getting this on here as much as I want to with the lightness. And again, I'm gonna add a little bit of gray down at this bottom portion of the beak right in through here. So I'm actually picking up some of my light gray, which would have been the color from the body of the mom. I picked up a little of the light gray, and now I'm going to add a touch of white. This just gives you a really nice, like, natural transition from the swan color into the color of the beak, that bright orange. When I was looking at various pictures of these animals, there definitely was a transition depending on, the light source and all that good stuff, from that bright yellowy orange color into like the bottom portion of the beak. And I think this is looking pretty good in through here. And then I'm going to, let me just make sure I've got enough of it, a little highlight in through here and a little highlight over here. So again, you can, once you've got the idea of where you want those bright areas to be, it's just a matter of kind of going back and just tweaking it, adding these little layers to get it to get into that intensity that you want, and getting those vibrant colors. You might want yours to be really subtle. You might want yours to be on the, softer side, and in which case you don't want these colors to be super vibrant. But I'm going somewhere in the middle, because I'm digging the way that the highlight is looking. I like the contrast with the light orange into the dark orange. And now that I've got the beak pretty well set, I might tweak it a little bit more, but I'm digging the way that it's looking right now, getting this to blend in over here. I've got my light highlight here. What I want to do now is I'm just going to kind of give myself that highlight on the top of that front portion of the skin. So I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm picking up a little bit of white paint. So I've got white that's going to almost outline the edge of this skin, and it doesn't have to be a super clean outline, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling it into the left. So I've got the bright highlight on the right, and then I'll start pulling it into the left. I'm going to pick up a touch of black with the white that's on my brush right now, so I can get these two to transition into the darkness over here on the left-hand side. So if my highlight is over on the right, that's great, but I want it to naturally kind of transition over here to the left. I also have a nostril that I've got to contend with. While I have this lighter color on my brush, I'm going to just give a little curve in through here that's going to give the implication that there's a nostril. And now I'm picking up some more black just to make sure that I've got these talking well together. I'm going to mess up my line up here where it meets the feathers that we're going to be putting on in a minute. And my whole goal right now is just to make sure this isn't really clean around the edges. I'm kind of messing it up a little bit, giving it a little bit of dimension with a touch of gray in it. And then I'm going to make sure that I have I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight at the bottom of the beak, the chin area in a second here. So that's looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to pick up my light gray plus a little bit of white to make sure that I have this bottom area has a nice highlight on it. So nothing really, again, it doesn't have to be a clean line. I just really want to make sure that there appears to be a little bit, you know, that I didn't miss this highlight in through here. And then you can, of course, keep fiddling with this. Oh, I think I want a little highlight around the eye like I did with the baby too. So I'm going to put just a little bit of this highlight around the edge of the eye. Again, nothing needs to be super clean. Just give you those little bits of bright feathers that are around the eye. We're going to be using a big brush to put the rest of the feathers. So utilizing this small brush for the moment will help you to get these little tiny details. And then we are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your details on your face for your baby one and your mama one, you can put your small brush away wherever you'd like to. Take out your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing the feathers on our baby swan. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are white, my light gray, brown, and that might be it. If I use any others, I'll let you know. So my thought process here is I want to just add some fluffy little baby feathers in through the chest. So I will be using a kind of a curved type of brush stroke to get that on there. On the head, I just want to add a little bit more texture to give the form of the head, so I need to add a little bit more lightness to it. But my biggest thing that I really want to accomplish here is the idea of the light that is coming from the other side of the swans. And where, oops, almost just dropped my brush there, where mom is casting kind of a shadow on most of it, there's going to be these little pops of brightness along the edges of the feathers that are going to just show that those have caught a little bit of the sunlight. So at no time will I ever use a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to be using very little bit of paint, and I'm either going to be using like a dotting type of technique or a little bit of a swiping technique. So I am going for my brightest, where I will use white, is going to be around the edges, but leading up to that I'm going to be just progressively getting lighter shades of the gray. So what I'm going to first start with is my light gray that I used for mom's swan. So I'm going to put that on the correct end of my brush, and I don't need a lot of it, so just a little bit of that light gray. And I'm going to start to put things in place. So I know that on the body in through here, I'm really just kind of swiping and using the corner of my brush. I'm adding these feathers coming off of the body, coming in through this way to kind of encapsulate that chest area. They can overlap your shadow a little bit. Because I'm using such a firm brush, it will pull the paint so it's almost translucent, so that will allow you to see some of that color underneath. And then I'm just going to kind of continue to do this in this area. The neck of my duck, my swan, is going to come down in through here, so that's going to have a highlight on it. So right when I get about here, I'm going to start maneuvering my brush to swoop towards the back of the little swan in through here. So I'm still just using that light gray from mom's base coat, And as I get towards this little tail or the end of it, I'm going to go past my duck a little bit. My swan, oh my gosh, I can't for the life of me get it right. I guess I need to paint ducks next. And I watch, if I paint ducks, I'll start calling them swans. Who knows? So I'm just going to go over the edge of it just a little bit in through there. So now that I've got the body started, I'm going to go and move to the head. I've got a lot in through here. I'm going to use a dotting type of technique for my head. So something like this. I don't want to color the whole thing. That's why we have that dark base underneath it. This is just going to provide us with texture to it, but I definitely want to make sure that there is texture throughout the whole thing. So I am dotting it, but I have very little bit of paint on my brush right now. So this is going to get that started in through there, and I'm just going to kind of keep going until I feel like I've got good coverage. And once I feel like I've got good coverage, now I'm going to start building a little bit lighter on my chest. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be picking up a little bit of brown and white. So that's going to be my next lightest shade. I'm not going to pre-mix it. I'm just going to put a little bit of brown and white on my brush at the same time. And again, I don't need a lot, so I can wipe it off on my paper towel. And I'm going to give myself another little layer that's going to be even brighter coming off the top of the duck, but of the swan, as I'm coming towards the lighter areas, I don't need to bring this lighter color all the way down the whole thing. I just want it to be the brightest where I'm going to have the lightest feathers. So I'm, again, just brown and white are the colors on my brush right now. And I'm going towards the lighter area, which is going to be this rear end here, where we're going to have a bunch of beautiful, light, fluffy feathers coming off the tail of this cute little swan, little baby swan. And you can see right now it's really starting to come to life. We've got some cute fluff happening in through here. And one of the tricks when you do want it to look nice and textured and have a lot of activity to it is don't do them exactly in the same direction. They can overlap each other in a similar direction, but they don't have to be exactly on top of one another. And I'm going to do the same thing on the head. I'm just kind of building myself a little bit more lightness towards the front of the head in through here. So just using this dotting type technique, and I do want it to look like it's going to blend in with the rest of the head. So I don't want just a vibrant section and nothing else. I'm kind of fading it into the darkness around the rest of the head. And if you felt that, you know, it would, instead of this dotting, if you wanted to really dry out your brush, you could almost rub it a little bit. But again, you don't want to get too much paint on there because it'll make it almost one solid color. You're really just going for kind of like a gradient of sorts underneath here, just to give a little bit of that extra dimension. And I'm leaving some towards a little darkness towards the eye, so that'll give again a little bit more sweetness to it. Now I'm going to go in for just a little bit more white in my color combination, which is going to get me a little bit more on this chest. I really don't want to have too much paint on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of tap it and pull it in this direction, which is going to give me these little fluffy pieces along the edge. And oh my god, he's looking so cute. So right now that I'm getting into pretty much the lightest that I'm going to want to go before I start adding that bright highlight along the edge, I'm going to start putting in this back of the neck. So I just kind of want to give myself a little bit of a guideline here. So I'm just taking it and kind of tapping it along the back edge in through here. So that tells me that. And now I'm just going to pick up white. So I'm not washing my brush, but I did pick up just white, no brown involved there. And I'm going to put my brightest little highlight over here on the left side. So I'm going to just kind of tap it along the edge of the head, so it's not a solid line. And once I've got it kind of tapped in there, if I want to bring it into the head a little bit more to the right, I wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm just kind of tapping it just a little bit in towards the eye area. So that will give you a little bit of roundness in through there. And then when I go to do it on the right hand side, again, I'm going to kind of tap it to get it into place. But this, I want this to look a little bit more fluffy, like there's little feathers kind of coming out. So once I've got it in place, now I can take the corner of my brush and I'm almost flicking it a little bit out to give you a little bit more of that feathery type of look along the edge. And I'm bringing it almost all the way up into where it meets mom. So I'm overlapping into my water area so you can get the visual information of the edge of those little feathers. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the tail. So this is really going to help to show you where the tail ends. It's going to give you a lot of dimension along those edges. And again, it doesn't have to be a firm line. I'm going to kind of just flick this bright white along those edges, and then if you want it to have more volume, you can bring it in just a little bit more. And of course, you can kind of keep tweaking this and having fun with it. If yours is if you feel it's too dark or too light, you can certainly adjust it with lighter or darker versions of the brown or the white. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful little swan, baby swan, all nice and with these great little flecks of color and vibrancy on it. Oh, he's so cute. You can put your medium brush away and just adding a little bit more lightness on his cheek in through here. You can put this medium brush away, take out your large brush, and see, now this is the part where I'm just going to want to keep playing with it. So you can do that if you feel like you need a little tiny light spot over here too. I messed this one in through here. There we go. So put your medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing the head and the neck of Mama Swan. So I'm using my large brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my light gray, brown, black, and white. So my whole goal here, I might not need black, but my whole goal here is to make it look soft and fluffy and have this being my dark area, this being my dark area, but I want a really bright highlight around the edge in through here, and I also want to have a little bit of a highlight like where the cheek is and where the front of the head is. So I'm going to be using my large brush for most of the time with that dotting type stippling technique. And then when I get to the edges, I will most likely pull it out just a little bit. I don't want it to have as long of edges as the baby swan had, but definitely, some little fluffiness to it. So I'm going to start with my original color, my original light gray, just to kind of get the party started. So I put that gray on my brush, and I'm just going to start to dot it on here in the middle area. I want there to, this is providing me with assurance that I've painted the whole thing, but this is also letting me have the information that this is going to be pretty much the base color for it, and it's kind of wetting it a little bit so I have an easier time transitioning into the lighter and darker areas. I'm now going to put some brown on my brush without washing it, and I'm going to have this brown kind of transition into the darker areas, so something like this. I am going to have a little highlight over on the right hand side, but I'll do that in a minute. So just getting a little bit of brown on my brush, bringing some natural tones to it so it looks really almost photorealistic when you're done with it, when you've got this brown type of hue to it. And then as I'm getting towards my lighter areas, again, just kind of making sure that I've got this whole thing as much dotted as I want. I'm going to start to pick up a little bit of white and brown at the same time. And again, very little paint. I don't know if you can see how little paint I have on my brush right now, but I like to be in control. So the less paint I have on my brush, the more I can control it. So I'm just starting to give this little bit of a highlight near where it's going to meet that skin beak area. And again, this is not necessarily meant to be a highlight from the light source. It's more or less meant to be like a contour highlight that will lead the viewer to understand that this piece of the body has some shape to it. And I'm going to do the same thing on the forehead. So I've got brown and white paint on my brush. So I'm going to give this lighter area on the forehead. And I don't want to go all the way white yet because I want the white to be my brightest of color when I go along the real highlighted edge on the exterior. And if you feel like you went too light, just pick up some of that original gray color and just get it to blend in or dull it down or do whatever you need to feel like you've accomplished the goal that you were going for. I think I actually want this area by the eye to be a little bit lighter, so I'm adding a little bit more white to my brush. And I know that this is a big brush for me to be doing this with, but if you want to do the same, you could certainly switch brushes to your smaller brush, but I'm going to just kind of tap in a little extra highlight around that eye just because I feel like it wants it. So something like that is going to make me nice and happy. And then I can go ahead and just kind of pick up some more brown or the gray just to get it to blend in if I wanted to. Or if I felt like I had too much paint on my brush, I could always wash and dry it if I wanted to. But I'm just kind of going with the flow, adding some extra little bits of information in through here. And then as I work in my way towards the exterior, whoops, almost lost my canvas there, I'm picking up some of that gray and white, or it could be gray, brown, and white. So I can get this exterior edge to be on the lighter side as well. But again, I don't want it to go all the way white. I want that white to be the color that I put at the very, very edge of it. So this is just a nice transition to get me there, but I don't want it to go fully white. And then I'm going to start backing it in to that grayish area that we had for the main area of the neck. And as I'm backing it in, what I'm doing is I don't have a ton of paint on my brush. I'm actually just letting my brush kind of run out of paint, and this is allowing me to just kind of tap in a nice transition into the darkness. And again, you can certainly keep tweaking it and, making it as powerful as you want, or if you feel like you need more brown or more black, you could certainly, continue to just dot on additional layers. But once I've got that area, I've got a nice transition from my dark to my light. Now's the time where I'm going, if you have a lot of paint on your brush, you could certainly wash it, but I'm just going to wipe mine on my paper towel, and I'm picking up just white paint. And I kind of want my bristles to be in control, so this is going to be another one of those times where I squish it on the side of my palette to bring all of my bristles together, and now I can really control it. I'm going to use quite a bit of paint to kind of tap this into the edge of my bird's neck over here on the edge, and I'm going to just kind of keep reloading. You could use a little bit of yellow in your paint mixture if you wanted to as well. That would help to make it look a little bit more sunshiny, but you can certainly play with those colors all you'd like. And I'm just tapping in this white. Even if you have wet paint along the edges from what you just did, that's okay. Just roll with it. Let it all look like it belongs together and that it works together. And then once I've got it kind of tapped in to those edges, you can kind of get it to blend a little bit into the color that you just did, which was that lighter gray. And then I'm going to start pulling it out past into my water area. So that's going to give you that real beautiful natural transition and tell the viewer that that there is a little bit of fluff to our swan's neck and head. So I'm going to pull those pieces out now. I'm just adding a little bit more white to my brush, and I'm just going to kind of, with the corner of my brush, just pull out a little bit along this edge. And I'm not pulling out much, just a bit to give you that, again, the information that there is a bit of texture. Maybe she just went underwater and she's got a little bit of fluffy pieces that are coming off the edge in through here. And the less consistent you make it, the more kind of natural you can get it, the more it's going to look like, you know, Mother Nature's making. Like, you know, it's like it really is like a photograph. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the whole key here, is just put the elements into place, but don't make them super duper perfect. I think I want to lighten up a little bit of this back area here, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my light gray with that white on my brush. I feel like it needs to be just a little bit lighter in through here. And then again, you can see I'm leaving that area nice and dark in through there, but I want it to transition well. So again, this is just part of my process. Once I've got my pieces of the puzzle in place, I just kind of step back and see if there's any adjustments that I want to make. And I'm only just kind of coming in through here because the wings are going to overlap it a bit. And then once you've got yours in the way that you want, we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So I'll probably just kind of keep tweaking mine a little bit, and when I'm all set, I will put my large brush away, take out my medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are finishing our mother's wings. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. You could, I suppose, get away with using your large brush as well, but I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use are dominant is white. I will most likely use probably the light gray, and some brown. If I feel I want to go into the dark gray or whatever, I'll let you know that too. But I did want to, before I do that, I said I was going to put a little highlight on the edge of this neck, which I didn't do with my big brush because it would have been too clunky. So I'm using this medium brush. So I'm just going to put a little bit of brown and white on my brush to get this little highlight going first before we move on into the wings itself. So just brown and white on my brush. And I just wanted to elevate this little edge just a bit more, bringing it all the way up in through this area, right where it kind of touches or almost gets to the little guy's head. So something like that just gives you the information of the light, where the light source is coming from that other side, and I'm just going to bring it down into here just a teeny tiny bit so we can again get that full effect. So now what I'm going to do, my wings are laying on the swan's back. They're going to have little feathers that are going to be kind of overlapping some of the bottom of the baby right here, and they're going to have some kind of overlapping each other in the middle. So I'm going to start at the bottom of my canvas to get some darker feathers, because I want it to look like they get darker as they go further away from us, and then we'll then start working from the top. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to just wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some brown and my original gray color. So this would be brown and the light gray on my brush at the same time. This is in essence going to kind of give me a roadmap of where I want them to go. So I want them to look like they're at an angle. So I'm going to start right about here and give myself just kind of a curved type of line coming in through here, and just get it to kind of gently blend in with that shadowy area. I don't want it to look like it's a separate entity. I just want this to kind of look like it is blended in a little bit. And then at the bottom right hand corner, I'm going to take my brown and that original light gray and just kind of give myself a couple of swoops up into that right hand direction. And I'm going to do the same thing coming up into this interior area, kind of from the bottom, and just kind of swooping up. When I get to about here, I'm going to kind of change directions of my brush stroke, and I'm going to bring it up and over from this center area, just kind of like in through there. And then I'm going to do a similar exercise on the left hand side. So I've got my brown and my original light gray color. I'm going to start over on the left hand side, and I'm going to bring myself some curved kind of streaks going in this direction to about the midway point, right about here. And that's when I'm going to start kind of switching directions like this, and it's going to come in this left-hand direction as I go towards the center area that we created. So something like this. And again, I'm just kind of pulling it back into this main central area from that center line that we created. So now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my medium brush. So wash and dry my medium brush. I'm going to pick up white paint only. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what I'm going to call like the shoulder. I know that's not what it is, but the top part of the wing where all the feathers are going to come from. So I'm going to do the brightest area is going to be over on the right hand side, and I'm going to give myself like a curved line in through here, and then all of my feathers are going to kind of fall off of that. So I've got white paint. I'm going to give myself a really nice light white edge in through here, and these can be like painterly type of brush strokes. You don't have to make them really clean or anything like that. So now that I've got this in through here, I'm going to just give myself a curved line that comes to about down in through here. So think of this as the main structure where the wing works from. So if this is the main structure, all my feathers would be coming off of this. So that's we'll call it the bone. That's not what it is either, but cartilage, I'm not quite sure, but that's where it's going to come from. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use white paint, but if I feel like I can't see the difference between all of my feathers, I can pick up some of my original gray or even some brown to get them to separate a little bit. So I've got this in through here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just kind of building some feathers coming off of that. So from here, I'm going to pull them to the left. And on the right hand side, of that line, I'm going to pull them towards the right. And I'm thinking they all come off of here. This and the edge are where I want my brightest areas to be. And they can get darker as it comes farther away. So I'm not concerned if I paint the whole thing 100%. I want there to be some light spots and some dark spots, but I want that lightest area to be right at that bridge or the bone type of part. So I just can keep adding white in through there, and then as I come over towards my little baby, I'm going to continue to add these feathers coming in this direction, and they're going to merge into this center area, and they're also going to overlap my bird, or my little bird, a little bit. So I'm coming over here, and I can just kind of pull a couple of them right in front of it. And I'm just going to kind of keep adding in this direction, and they don't all have to be laying in exactly the same direction. I want there to be some nice feathery edges to them, so I'm just pulling with the corner of my brush in a general direction, but it doesn't always have to be in exactly the same curve. You can see I've got some coming down a little bit more. I'm going to have some that are going to overlap. I'm going to have some that are going to go right in front of my little guy, but I'm going to maintain that there's a shadow underneath there. So I am giving it a conscious thought, but I don't have to execute it perfectly because they're all just kind of overlapping each other. And I do want to make sure that this makes sense over here. So this is all going to kind of come off in this direction, and it's going to overlap into that original brown gray that we did. And just again, I'm not doing it perfect. I'm having them come off at slightly different angles, trying to keep a little bit of the darkness down at the bottom. And I want to avoid making it look like we had an outline around the edge. And when I looked at these birds, it's really difficult to see the difference between the feathers because the feathers are all so bright white. So if you can get just a little bit of that under gray to show, awesome. That's what's going to tell the viewer that there is some dimension to it. But don't worry, if a lot of it just ends up white, because that's what these feathers are. But I like to see if I can get a little bit of dimension going. That's why I started with the darker color underneath. But if yours ends up mostly white, that's okay too. So I'm going to let this one sit for a second. I'm going to move on to this left one. And if I feel like I want to come back and do anything more to that one, I will. So I'm going to pick up some more white paint. My edge of this one is going to be over in through here. So I'm going to just make sure that that's really nice and bright in through there with a whole bunch of white. And I'm going to have this one is going to be kind of laying down in this direction. And it's going to be, this will be my base from which all my feathers will come off of that center in through there. So now I just start building it. So I've got these ones will come kind of in this direction, and these ones will come kind of in this direction for the most part. But of course you can certainly get some of them to come off a little bit different. As they're towards the center, they might go a little bit more straighter, but just know that they're all going to come off of this center kind of structure, like a leaf. A leaf has that center almost vein going down it, and all the water that goes into that vein feeds the rest of the leaf. So this kind of is the structure of the wing, and it will feed the feathers out into these various areas. So as I come in through this center area where they're meeting each other, I can certainly have them overlapping a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of get my directional strokes in here to get it to look like it's got some nice shadow in between, and that I've got, you know, maybe one's kind of going over the other one, but I still all the while want to make sure that I maintain the direction of the feathers. So I'm just kind of making sure they all kind of come off of this main structure. And then as I get towards the bottom, I'm leaving it a little bit darker with a little bit less paint on my brush as I get towards the bottom of it. And then I might, when I feel like I'm kind of coming to the end here, I'll probably go back and tweak the one on the right a little bit more. Just make sure I've got enough of that bright white, especially at those edges. That's really a main goal for me on this one, is to make sure that I've got those really bright edges that are gonna, you know, speak to the beautiful, delicate, white, vibrant, you know, wings that this beautiful bird has. And I'm making sure that I can, you know, emulate that in the painting. So I'm going to continue to do this, and if I need or feel like I need a little bit more dimension to the wings, I would definitely just add maybe a little bit more of the lighter gray down at the bottom. You can always, again, like right now I have white and my lighter gray just to get these areas to make sure that they talk to one another. If you feel like your gray is too dark underneath, then you can certainly just add additional layers or additional feathers on top of it, just to make sure that it all looks like it belongs together and that it's not too overwhelming with the contrast. Sometimes when we do these layering type of steps, if we, you know, we might have started a little bit darker than we thought that we, you know, wanted to, and we might not get that transition in a gentle enough way. It might be too high of a contrast. So if that happens, you just pull in a medium tone of whatever it is, and that'll help you to kind of let those areas speak to each other. Like right now I have my original gray plus white on my brush, just to make sure that this bottom area really reads as being part of the whole equation and doesn't look too dark. I do want it to be dark, but it doesn't have to be overwhelmingly dark. And then you just kind of keep tweaking and playing with it. Oh, it's making me happy. Here comes my happy painterly thoughts are creeping in as I'm finishing up these little last pieces. But I'm going to keep tweaking mine a little bit. We do have one final step to go, and that's going to be with your small brush. So once you've got your beautiful wings on here and you've played with them as much as you want to, oh yeah, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use black paint. I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going to sign this one in the bottom left. I do my initials, but you could certainly use your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be. It's totally up to you. I'm having some fluidity issues with my signature right now. There we go, we got it now. So once you've got it signed, that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful swan, coddling her baby, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.